locations carrying Gray Duck, head to grayduckspirits.com.
Please drink responsibly. Gray Duck Spirits, LLC, Lakeville, Minnesota.
Get the duck out.
I had Chad. I was filling in on a PA show a couple weeks ago, and I had Chad in the studio, and it was really neat. That was really the first time I talked to him. He's just a good dude. Yeah.
I've also heard that he is a very accomplished youth coach. That he
girls basketball,
and that they kick
he runs
some
the Girls Basketball Association,
Yep.
Youth Association in Wayzata.
Yep.
Wayzata.
I think so.
Yeah.
My favorite.
Hopkins, Wayzata, same thing, right?
My favorite. It's Wayzata because I did a story on it once. My favorite Marian Gaborik memory was one of the first. It was the first Olympics I covered. Was Turin, Italy, and it introduced me to international hockey. It was fantastic. It was like you walked into this little, almost like a high school rink kind of setting, at least for the initial. I think the finals were held at a nicer rink, but the initial rinks were like a Braemar of Italy. You know, you walk in there, and everybody from Slovakia is wearing a funny hat. And everybody from Slovakia had like 4 beers. They were walking around. They looked like Santa Claus with 4 beers. And then I can't remember who they were playing, but the first game, they're down to one of their rivals, and Gaborik scores 2 breakaways in like the last 5 minutes to win it.
Well, that's what Gaborik was so good at. I mean, I still remember this one game that the Wild were playing up at Rexall Place. I think it was after Christmas, my first NHL season covering the Wild, and it was back when the league tried to do, they tried the whole 2 games in a row series thing. I don't know if you remember that. It was the first or second year, and so the Wild, after Christmas, I think, played consecutive games up in Edmonton, and they were playing like absolute, crap one night, and I think it was this game, and all of a sudden, third period, Gaborik just shows up breakaway. Next thing you know, another goal. And that's what the Wild have lacked historically, is that one guy that with the puck on his stick can turn a game around. They haven't had anybody like him since, and so he was a heck of a player. Unfortunately, because of his health issues, he'll just go down as a player that probably didn't fulfill the expectation of what he could have been in the league. You know, he's going to go down as a great player. I mean, he has 400 goals, probably 800 points. Won a Stanley Cup in 2014 with the LA Kings, where he had 14 or 15 goals in that postseason. I don't know if you remember. And he was always a playoff performer as well, except for 2008 when the Wild got upset by Colorado. Him and Dimitri struggled, but because of his health, cutting a lot of his career short here. He just probably will not go down in history as one of this is somebody that probably had Hall of Fame talent and just didn't amount to that. But he had a really good career, won a cup, so I don't think he regrets not re-signing here.
Speaking of legacies, I wrote about this in today's paper. Koivu is such an interesting case. Incredible longevity, loyalty to one team, durability, great defense, great face-offs. Didn't have the great offensive stats, didn't have the high profile around the league. And I was trying to think if Minnesota has produced any other athletes that really fit that profile. I really couldn't think of any that were just like that, because usually to stay with one team for that long and have that high a profile, you have to be kind of a star-level player. And Mikko was more of a reliable player.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is Mikko should thank Marian Gaborik for the whole way that thing all left. Yeah. Because by him leaving as Chuck Fletcher's first move, where again, it's not really his fault, but their first move where he got nobody for a big player. The next year, when Mikko was about to be up, what do? They get in front of it and give Mikko a 7-year deal at $6.75 million, probably overpay him, but it was all because they didn't want the same thing to happen again with the guy that was their captain. So one big reason why Mikko has spent his entire career here is because of the way the Marian Gaborik thing really broke down.
Right. No, very good point. Longtime sponsor, Fixology Repair. They've worked on Michael's stuff. Michael's bought stuff at their place. Mothership's out at the 3rd floor of the Mall of America up by Nordstrom's. They have a place now near the Wild offices in St. Paul in the Skyway there. And they have a place in the Skyway in downtown Minneapolis, the one I walk by all the time, and I go in and check. Repairs, iPads, tablets, watches, watch repairs. They sell you watches. They have an incredible number of accessories. I highly recommend Fixology Repair, fixologyrepair.com.
Hi, this is John with Fixology Repair. For the better part of a decade, we've been privileged to serve you for all of your jewelry, watch, and smartphone repair needs at the Mall of America. Since Minnesotans largely hate going to the mall, we expanded 2 years ago to reach you in the Minneapolis Skyway. And now this year, we're pleased to announce we have a new location at Wells Fargo Place in the St. Paul Skyway. All 3 shops are equipped to help with your watch and cell phone repair needs on site, while all jewelry, computer, and game consoles will be completed at the Mall of America store. Please bring us your repair challenges, and don't forget to mention the Talk North podcast for a 10% discount on all of our services.
Chris, our longtime listener who comes to a lot of the shows, asked a question. He said, why did we go into sports writing, and why did we stick with it? I'll let you go first.
Why did I go into sports writing? I mean, I really don't know. I mean, I sort of fell into it. You know, it's funny. I was down in Tampa the other day, and a lot of those sports writers that are down there are people that I grew up really with, that covering high schools and things like that. And one guy, Mark, who's the AP writer, we were talking about Steve Wine, who's the AP writer down in Miami. And when I was working at the Sun Sentinel as a freelancer, I would also string for Associated Press and run quotes and things like that. And Steve's still down there working. But that's how I sort of learned the business. And but I started at 15 years old, in June of, really young, and or I can't remember what month, but I announced the games at my high school. Then I befriended Dave O'Brien, who now works with us at The Athletic, covers the Atlanta Braves, and he got me a job at the Sun Sentinel while I was also working at the Boca News and things like that. And I just sort of never left the newsroom. It was just crazy. And so I still don't really know how it all happened, because I definitely didn't grow up wanting to be a sports writer. Although looking back on it now, there were a lot of indications that maybe this was something I wanted to do. Like when I had a paper route, I would read all the articles and things like that. But I started working in the office, answering phones, doing box scores from high school coaches and things like that. Then coincidentally, Dave O'Brien, I think, got sick, and I covered a Deerfield Beach high school football game. And the guy, Mark Renaud, had a monster game and broke Emmitt Smith's rushing record in the first half of that game. And so I called work and just never stopped writing. And so I don't know. But, it is. So I go to Raleigh the next game after the Tampa game, and there's this kid there that goes to NC State. And he was so excited to be in the press box and covering this Carolina-Minnesota Wild game. And he was excited to meet me because because it was somebody that he looked up to and things like that. And what it does when I see kids like that, though, is it does remind a old crotchety sports writer that sometimes doesn't get excited by going into a rink anymore. It reminds you of back in the old days when you were so excited to go and cover a game in a professional building and look up to the writers that you did back then. And it sort of makes you realize, that this is a pretty cool job that you have when you have days when you're just tired and grouchy and traveling all the time and things like that. So, I do love it. I mean, there are days where it gets there are days where you're like, God, it'd be nice to cover the Vegas Golden Knights. No, I'm just kidding.
We can still do podcasts when you work in Vegas.
Yeah, exactly.
And my story is really quick. I mean, I grew up just reading everything, and I read a lot of sports. I loved sports. I read Sports Illustrated and Sporting News, Sports Page every day. But I also read fiction, nonfiction, history. Back then I was really.
That's why you're such a better writer than me.
That's not true.
I don't read anything.
But I was really interested in writing. I was really interested in how you put a story together, and I always kind of, as a kid and a high schooler, I always thought, man, wouldn't it be great to write for Time Magazine or Newsweek or something like that? Because back then those were big deals. They're really not anymore. And then I went to college, and they sent me on an assignment to go cover a city council meeting in Columbia, Missouri for the paper. And I fell asleep, and I said, I'm not going to do that. And then I went and covered a high school football game, and it's so vivid. Mm-hmm. And that's sometimes we forget when you see 85 games a week. It's to go to a game and to try to describe what's happening and ask the right question and find out things that maybe other people don't know and profile a personality. I found that to be, not only fun, but it was like immediate gratification.
And that to me is the best part of this job. I mean, covering the games are great, but to me it's covering the personalities. Yeah. I think that it's very important as a sports writer, even though sometimes the players probably don't buy it, that you have immense respect for the people that you're covering. And that's why it's like, I keep on saying it like a broken record, like why I just hope that Ryan Donato can get it together where he can stick here.
He's impressive.
He's just like, there are people like that you just like, man, this kid is just such a great person that you just like, I hope it works. And works where it's not where he just raises his stock and Bill Guerin trades him away. But like this kid he's worked his butt off. He deserves for it to work. And so I think it's important that you respect the people that you're writing and then that you are able to then, because of that respect level, write really good personality profiles and kind of tell the fans that don't get to chat over lunch with these players who this guy Ryan Donato is or Kevin Fiala or whatever. So I think that's a big part of it. But you mentioned high schools. Like, to me, that's where all sports writers should get their start.
Everyone should cover high schools.
And it doesn't happen that way anymore. Like, young kids are just immediately covering professional sports and things like that because really we don't cover high schools the way that we used to. But that's where that's where you work. I mean, where you're working those sidelines in a rainstorm and having to write these stories in your front seat of your car and sending it over a payphone or whatever. How I'm sure that's changed now, but I don't think there are payphones anymore. But you know what I mean? Like the people reading you are just the coaches of that team, the parents of those players, and the players. Like you're not on KFAN talking about it after game or sitting next to LaPanta talking on FSN. So like those are the ways that I think that you really learn the sport. And when I look back at my career, those are the times I had the most fun. Like I still remember all the high school stories that I wrote. I remember most of the players' names. I remember every single coach's name. Like I genuinely had a passion for it. And then it just kind of continued on to suddenly covering the NHL.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have a topic you want to get to, or should I go to Twitter questions?
No, and live questions.
And in live questions, if you have any, feel free to come up.
Just ready. Camping at the pit.
Oh, excuse me. She's loaded. Let's take over.
I think her first question needs to go to Allison
We'll take it.
Yeah.
Hey, let me remind everybody.
Caller.
Let me remind everybody that Michael and I get our insurance from the same person, Tony Hoagland, Hoaglund. His office is in Champlin, but you can work with him wherever you happen to be. Because I just use the app. I call, I text. Very responsive, great guy, and has been a big supporter of this show and the network. Tony Hoagland, your State Farm agent.
Hi, Talk North listeners. I wanted to let you all know about State Farm's new program called Quotes for Good. We partner with local nonprofits to raise money for great causes. For the Russo-Souhan show, I'll be donating $16 to the Jason and Carly Zucker Give 16 campaign that benefits the University of Minnesota Masonic Children's Hospital. When you call in, be sure to mention the show so that we can track the donations. You can reach us at 763-421-4900 or check out our website at champlininsurance.com.
All right. Were you going to ask a question? No. Okay. All right. I did have a Twitter question. Okay, while Vicky makes her way up, Ryan Sanderson said, any chance the Wild pick up any free agents in like at Vanek? Do they even have the cap room? And is there anyone on the market you think would be a good fit if injuries continue?
I mean, that's a good question if injuries continue. They do have the cap room. I don't think, I think that Vanek is probably giving it another couple weeks before he just says, all right, kind of puts himself to pasture. But I know he's still working out and hoping that somebody's going to call him and things like that. And obviously he's right now local and would love to come back. But the Wild right now, seems like they're losing centers, as they speak. I will say this, it sounds like Stahl's okay. I did talk to Billy Guerin this afternoon, and knocked my you're the only one that saw it. It's almost forget it.
It's good that you're turning red, though. That's a good visual.
But I did talk to Billy this afternoon, and Billy said that right now he's hoping to skate tomorrow. So, which makes me think that he doesn't have a concussion, that this might have been just a stinger. I mean, it was like shoulder, neck, straight onto that linesman's chest. So we'll have to see. I mean, Eric's one of those guys, you have to make him not play, right? I mean, the guy is so durable. You look at his career and how I think he's missed 20 games in his entire career, and a couple of those are healthy scratches to prepare for the playoffs. So this guy is just unreal. But so they've got to really watch him because he is the type of person that would play hurt. And then just hopefully he doesn't have a concussion. I mean, that's the thing you always worry about in these situations. Concussions do the symptoms a lot of times show up a couple days later. So he's just got to trust his own body tomorrow and make sure.
I thought he took a knee to the chest.
I don't think he got the knee